Loabneh, born in Nazareth, in the United States since 1987. In Nazareth, he worked on several Arab and Israeli projects and developed some activities and programs across boundaries. In the United States, he's established an environmental service company. He's developed a pizzeria, and he runs a personal health service company that does transportation, adult daycare, interpretation, Meals on Wheels for diverse adults. Lots of experience in diversity.
Good afternoon. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
So, 15 minutes. I mean, how can you talk in 15 minutes? So, listen, today I was asked to come here as a guy who's considered a minority in Israel. Okay? That's what they think of me as a minority in Israel. I don't think that way, but that's a whole different discussion. I was born in Nazareth, so I'm an Israeli Arab, and I'm a Muslim. I grew up in a Muslim family. So when I was born and raised in Nazareth, everybody in Nazareth is an Arab. I don't know what a minority is, but that textbook definition, I'm probably a minority, but I feel as a full Israeli Arab Muslim. Look, today, what I want, this Israeli Arab and some of the social gaps between the Arabs and the Jewish Israelis is pretty wide. And there's no justice for 15 minutes, but I'm trying to do my best today. I'm going to give you a little flavor what takes place between. I'm going to put a different hat on today, not a business hat. I'm not here trying to run a business. I'm here to try to explain. I'm taking myself. I'm going to put myself on the street of Nazareth and the streets of Haifa and Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, if you will, to tell you exactly what's taking place in 10 minutes. If I can accomplish this, I think I win you. I win you over. I win you because no matter what I say, if you compare the life of an Arab in Israel versus an Arab in the rest of the world, you compare apples to oranges. I'd rather take the bite of the apple. And my apple is in Israel today, not in the rest of the world. Just keep that in mind. But having said that, some of us Arabs haven't had a chance to bite that apple. And they worry about biting this apple. Is it polished? Is it bitter? Is it sweet? We don't know. Because there's a lot of social gaps. There's a lot of problems in there. And I think we solved that problem today. Am I right, Debbie? Yes? Between us, yeah. So, I'm going to give you a few examples that happened to me while I was in Israel, living in Israel or visiting Israel. I'll give you a little flavor of what's going on between Arabs and Jews in Israel. You understand there's Arabs who are Muslims and Christian in Israel, right? How many of you guys know this? Put your hands up. Okay, wonderful. That's more than I thought. So it's great. So I'm an American. I'll go back. I'm an Israeli Arab Muslim American. I have 2 passports. For a long time, I thought I licked the world. Today, I'm not quite sure. Depends on where you go in the world, because it's kind of a little difficult to be. But as I was born in Israel, I left Israel when I was in high school. Right out of high school, I came here. So you get a perspective of an American Israeli Arab Muslim, which I think is a good perspective because I've been on the sideline watching players playing. They fumble on the ball and they hit each other and breaking each other. They losing the battle, winning the battle. But it's good to be on the sideline because you get to see everything. And then I can come and tell you guys what I saw. It's perfect. So, I travel to Israel, not because I go out there to make money, because I want to have fun. I want to eat the hummus and the falafel and drink the Turkish coffee and watch all the beautiful women. They're all beautiful out there. And my wife is not here, so we can talk about this. But as I go there, I don't care about nothing happens to me. I'm willing to walk anywhere in Israel, any time of the day, any day of the week, than being downtown Minneapolis after midnight. I'm telling you right now. You put me in Haifa, in Tel Aviv, in Caesarea, I don't care. I'm going there without nothing in my hand. I can walk in there barefoot with shorts on, without a tank top. But then, every once in a while, you get those little waves, and you just, you say, what is this all about, An example, I flew to Israel a couple of years ago, and in my mind, I didn't eat through the whole trip because my mom was making stuffed zucchini and eggplant. So I'm thinking food. So I jump in the car, I rent the car, and I fly 140, 150 kilometers an hour. I get stopped. Cops stop me. The guy said, your driver license. I'm speaking English, not Hebrew to him, because I thought, I could get away with murder. He looks at the driver license. He kept me for about 45 minutes. This is a Jewish police. And then he comes back and he said, here's a ticket, and I'm keeping your driver license. I'm hungry, remember? I said to myself, what the hell, I go back to the state, $18, I get a new driver license, you can have it. And then I leave. Second day I get up in the morning and say, wait a minute, this is wrong. When he left, I looked at the license plate. It says Mim in Hebrew, which is Mishtara, police. And there's a number in it, and I kicked that number in my head. I went to the local cops, police, and I walked in there and I said, I want to talk to the in-charge person here. So that took about 30 minutes. Finally the guy came in. I told him the story. He said, well, that's not right. Then he called this guy. I gave him that license plate number. Called him up, the guy came in. He said, I'm sorry. This is a cop talking to me. He said, I'm sorry. I took it because I thought you were Lebanese. Your last name is Loabneh. So I told him, I said, you thought I was Lebanese and you let me go? Give me the driver license. And I walked out. Another incident, I went a year ago or so, a year and a half ago, back home. And I decided with 5 of us, 5 married men, harmless men, married men, to go to Jordan. So we drive our car to the border, and guys, it's exactly what happens. For those who've been through that experience, you have 2 options. You can either take your car in and get a Jordanian license plate, or you can park your car in the parking lot, and then you walk in and grab a different cab and you get in there. We chose to leave our cars on this side of that border. And then, I don't look an Arab, to be honest with you, when I'm there. Especially, I'm just a little different when I was there. I was reading Time magazine, but I'm in the back of the line of the other 4 that was with me. My father-in-law was one of them. And then the lady, she went like this, meaning step to the side. She knew that it's an Arab group, step to the side. And it was a line that she just picked us up and stepped to the side. So I'm reading my Time magazine, and then I'm listening to the conversation between the officer and the group that I was with. And it was stupid stuff that no reason to talk about. Finally, she calls another guy, comes in, and he says, Ma baya, in Hebrew means, what is the problem? I stepped in. I said, I think she likes him. She wants him. In those words. And then my father-in-law said, what did you say? I said, I told him if you want her. It took 1 second. And they said, keep going. The point here is this social gaps. It's stupid. I don't think it's something. We, both Arabs and Jews, are creating this gap. Okay? We did narrow this gap since the 70s and the 60s. It's getting better and better and better. But I think we need to narrow it much more because, I took why would you take a driver's license? What is that about? You gave me a ticket for 400 shekel. I paid the ticket. That's enough, isn't it? There's no reason to take my driver's license. You basically telling me, don't drive anymore through your trip. And then the conflict between on the Jordanian-Israeli border between the officer and the guys I was with, it was a stupid thing. It was really dumb stuff. So, and that's what you hear all over Israel, between the Arabs and the Jews. They live together, they work together, they do business together, they marry each other on a lot of occasions. There's intermarriage going on, but we still have those little stupid differences between us. And we have to start working on this today, not tomorrow. Now, you guys are young here. I get a lot of young folks here, right? But this has to start with the new generation. And we are dealing with the new generation, the 25. How much time do I have left?
10 minutes.
Okay, good. Wow. That's wonderful. So we have a lot of time, and we need to deal with the new generation on both sides of the equation. The old mentality is not going to work. Read my lips, write it down. It's not going to work. Israel invested a lot of time and effort in the minority leadership. That ain't going to work. We all know that's not going to work. You know, the State Department in the U.S. here, the State Department is so old. It's older than old. They're doing the same thing. They sent Mitchell to talk to one guy. He's not even there anymore. We have to start thinking differently. I'm talking Arabs and Jews. I want to go back home, think it's home. I've been here since 1983, not 87. You took 4 years from my life. I wish they were there. So the point is, when I come here, I think of myself as going to the office. I don't think as going home. I'm telling you right now. I have several homes in this country that I own. I think of myself as going to the office. My home is back home, not here. I want to think that way. I want my kids to think that way. When I step in Israel, I want to say, this is my airport, this is my life, these are my cops, my army, my world, my highway, my souk, my market. I don't want to hear anybody telling me, well, don't go to Netanya today because something stupid happened, and if they know you're an Arab, you're going to get different treatment. That's not what I want. And I want the same thing from the Israeli Jews. When they want to come to Nazareth, they can walk through the old town. Free. Do what they want to do. You can't run the country as a bottom line. You can't run the country as a bottom line. The dollar. You have to understand culture. And if you don't understand culture, you will fail miserably. There's a book, friend of mine, who told me to read it. It's called 3 Cups of Tea, for an author called Greg Morrison. Read it. You know what? I'll buy the book for all of you. Because we started the first cup of tea in Israel, and it was sweet or better. We skipped the second and third one. We went right into business. Biggest mistake we ever made. We have to understand culture. A caller who is in this room called me up yesterday. Because he didn't understand the culture, he wants to cut me off. And he said, well, okay, you're a businessman, you made a wonderful life, you did American Dream, why are you coming to the panel? Well, you got to understand, I'm an Israeli Arab. What am I missing here? I'm an Israeli Arab who not only was born there, lived there, tried it, worked it, watched it. I'm the one you need to listen to. It's a culture thing, folks. I'm doing a project right now through the healthcare with the Native American in this country. I've been working on this for 2.5 years. I ain't got nowhere. It's a cultural thing. You got 3 cups of tea. Not the first one, not the second, and the third. We might have to go to 4th. You have to learn the culture. You have to understand exactly their focus and what they're trying to do before you get into the business part of this equation. If you're going to run this as a bottom line, you will fail miserably. You'll make the money, very short term, and then you'll be very sorry. I really believe there is a hope because of the new generation. Look what's happening all over the world. This new generation has the world on the tip of their fingers. I'm almost 50. I consider myself a new generation. So I have a lot of hope. So my message to all of you today, when you leave this room, send the message out to the new generation. Work together. Learn each other and learn the culture and live the culture. Before we start going to the minority leaders and put your energy and effort in folks who don't count anymore. Today, it's easier for me to deliver the message than it was last Thursday afternoon. It's much easier. That's all I have to say. And thanks for your time.
As the guy who tried to set the business limit yesterday, he does great. But I did try to set business limits. That's our culture right now. It's time. We're tight for time. The next speaker is Dr. Tamar, who is a political geographer. She's here in the United States for a year studying, and she comes to us from Israel, where she has done research and has developed a reputation for herself for bridging across cultures. And she's going to be talking about minorities and set the stage for us. Tam, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm excited to be here with you, and I'm happy to try and put a little perspective and historical and cultural perspective into my friend Ned's words, and I was extremely touched by this feeling of being at home in Israel. I think we both share that we both are talking out of love for a homeland which we would like to improve culturally, socially, and economically, in every way possible. And I'm lucky that to have found him as a partner here in the city of Minneapolis and in the wonderful congregation here. So I'd like to talk just for a couple of minutes about the challenge of Israel as a Jewish state, as a democracy, with minorities. This is a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multilingual, whatever you want to say, and yet it strives to be a democracy, and it also strives to be a Jewish state, the only Jewish state in the world. And one thing that I think is important to put in mind, when we think about multiculturalism or multi-ethnic states, we think maybe along the terms of a melting pot. In Israel, there is no pretense or no goal of being a melting pot. It's more, maybe the image I would use is a mosaic of coexistence and striving to really create that feeling of being at home while keeping specific identities. And there is a preference within the different communities to keep identity, keep religion, to keep the tradition, to keep the language. Arabic is of course, an official language in Israel together with Hebrew. There is a recognition of the different court systems, family court systems, for the Christians, Jews, Muslims, and Druze and Jews. And the same with the school systems, the school materials. This is all a development of years of trial and error. It hasn't always been smooth, but the importance of for Jews learning Arabic and for Arabs learning Hebrew does not, of course, replace the need or the desire of each community to keep the essence of their own language, culture, religion. And this is very clear already from the Declaration of Independence, where Israel is defined as a Jewish state which offers legal equality, full, unconditional equality for its minorities, for the non-Jews of the Jewish state. And then, of course, it is a very big challenge. And in light of the tragic, I think, developments, and many times we hear about different rabbis who say otherwise. The chief rabbis of Israel, when Israel was formed, endorsed the importance of giving legal equality to non-Jews in Israel. They're speaking about Rabbi Herzog and Rabbi Uziel, and many times there are manipulations of religion as if the Jewish religion has a problem with treating non-Jews as equals on a civic level. I clearly see this as not only see this as I see this as a manipulation which works when people feel when people feel marginalized, when there's conflict, they run to these maybe more radical interpretations. But we heard today Rabbi Malkior, there are clearly voices who are religious representatives who lead us in seeing non-Jews as equals in the state, in civilian life. And yet there are of course, there's this distinction. The one legal distinction between Jews and Arabs has nothing to do with civic rights. It has to do with the civic duty of serving in the army, where the Arabs, out of a certain understanding of the sensitivities of the Middle East and of the culture and of the connection with the Palestinian and the greater Arab society, so Arab Israelis do not have to, or they're not directed to the army unless they volunteer to do so, and Israel often encourages them to volunteer and sees their contribution as important, and many Arabs have risen within the army to lead to positions of command. In politics, Arabs have parties and have their own representation both at the local and at the national level. There are Arab Supreme Court at the Israel Supreme Court, and there's a lot of advance in health. The state has done in increasing the life expectancy and reducing infant mortality, and I could go on and on about what has been done in building the state and trying to bring the equality from the letter of the law to real life, and really having a democracy where people enjoy the same quality of life. But obviously, the challenges and what is meant to be done needs to be addressed. So I'm going to try and do that, and I'm going to try and see where the problem, and I'm struggling with this myself, so your comments will be welcome, where the problem may arise. The first is, of course, the historical context. Arab Israelis, as traditionally they have larger families. The ratio between the number of dependents and the number of providers is of course different from that of the larger Jewish society, and there is a wider degree of poverty among the Arab society. Another factor that contributes to this is that traditionally many women in Arab society don't go to work, or they work only part-time in something that's near the house. Arab villages and towns, many times they don't have the infrastructure to reach the main central places of work at the time. That's something to develop workplaces, industrial sites within the Arab towns and villages. There's also a problem which is often, it's difficult, it's sensitive to address the issue of leadership in the Arab villages and townships, which is naturally something a little bit to do with the family clans, where people are appointed jobs not only according to their professional qualifications, but also, or maybe only because of their families or wider families, and then there are things that are not developed. But on the Israeli side, there is plenty to be done as far as the Israeli Jewish government officials. That there is clearly a problem in implementing the law. And the law of equality is not implemented in budgeting Arab schools, in budgeting the infrastructure, the development, in allocating land for development. So I'm in an effort not to just point fingers, I'm trying to see where we can move and what would be the source. And I think that in discussing this, we can't be naive, and we have to realize that we're discussing a problem not in France and not in England, where even those countries are struggling with multiculturalism and multi-ethnic society and expressions of inequality and of cultural misunderstanding and mistrust. But in Israel, where the conflict is ongoing and mistrust and misunderstanding is so widespread, where people are in many ways living post-trauma or even ongoing trauma. I don't even know how to emphasize this is represented, I think, also in what Ned said about the policeman would automatically stop Ned and maybe not stop me or treat us differently in the same situation, and the bus driver would treat him differently, and the school teachers maybe would, or the chances of getting into university or getting a job after university. There's been understanding that the Arabs have a hard time getting into even government jobs or the electric company, clearly not just a private enterprise where I could just decide that I don't want to hire a non-Jew, and that's as a private decision. So this is clearly something that needs to be addressed, and I think I would point to the area of education, of addressing democratic values in both cultures, in both educational systems. Both the Jewish and the Arab need to learn more about what it means, what are the rights, and what are the duties of being a citizen in a democratic state that is struggling in this environment of conflict, in this region of ongoing conflict. What it's like what it should be, what it really means to be equal, and what this entails in terms of respecting the other's cultural and cultural identity, or the expression of religion, and elementary needs in terms, especially in terms of land, of equality, of budget allocation. These are things that are daily in the newspapers, daily being explored. Ned said that we're going in a positive direction. I certainly hope so. Sometimes when things are exposed, so you get depressed and you think, oh my gosh, but maybe that the number of things that are being exposed show some interest, some desire to correct. And Israel is not perfect in that, and I think that there's room for involvement for those of us who care to try and be more involved. I'd like to maybe end with a small example of something that I was a teacher for many years in high school in Israel. And in religious high schools in Israel, the sentiment is obviously more traditionally, I'm sorry to say obviously, but it's the truth, traditionally less has a tendency to understanding or to wanting to interact with the Arabs of Israel, and less accepting of them. I once had an incident where I accidentally forgot something in the car, and I sent out my child to go and get it from the car, and he left the car keys dangling from the outside of the car. And this is Israel. In the morning, I looked for the car keys, and I said, yeah, here, where's the car keys? He said, I gave them to you. I said, yeah, so where are they? And he ran out to the car, expecting really not to find them. And the car keys weren't on the car, but the car was there, and there was a note on the windshield. And the note was written with many, many mistakes in Hebrew, saying, I have what you're looking for. Call me at this and this number, and I'll return them to you, Ahmed. So I called the number, and Ahmed introduces himself. He's the newspaper. He gives out the newspapers early in the morning. He saw the car keys. He didn't want somebody to steal my car, and he offered right away to come and bring me the car keys. I said, Ahmed, it's okay. I'll drive out to your village and I'll get them. You've done enough. Thank you. And I wanted to offer him money. He refused to take money. So I wrote a letter to the newspaper where he works, and I commended him, and I told him that they have a fine young man working for them, and they should hold on to him and maybe offer him some better opportunities, because he proved himself to be extremely trustworthy. And then I used this example. My children know about Ahmed. They know about a few more other stories about Ahmed, because I use this in educating my children. And whatever they hear outside, they know what we at home see differently. Now, in schools, I use this as examples in my classrooms. And I'm constantly trying to open other options with my students to show how there are other ways which will bring us forward into a better place. And sometimes it's said that it doesn't go at the rate that it should go, and what I'd like to say is that we need both involvement in education at the lower levels, at classrooms of students, and we need it at the higher levels of government, of people who are out there, the judges and the ministers, looking out for equality, looking out for sensitivity. And all this has to be done with the understanding that we are in a region of conflict where tempers run high, suspicions run high, sensitivities run high, and sometimes it's enough someone with an Arab accent could cause, in the mall, when you are sitting next to someone on the bus, is it a terrorist, isn't it a terrorist? It's horrible to feel that I would sit next to Ned here and we're great friends, and if I sit next to him on the bus, I'm going to be scared. Isn't that a terrible feeling, both for him and for me? But this is what an environment of conflict can do to people. And it's maybe not politically correct to say so, to admit it, but it happens, and I'm not quite sure how much you can identify with this feeling or with this situation, but those of us who were in Israel in the 1990s and heard, or the early 2000s, this is the sentiment that this is where we have to work from. So there has been advance, but there's a lot further to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both. We have some time now for you to begin the process and ask the questions, and I will take them as I see them. Yes, please speak loud enough so I can hear you. And the rest you speak a question to one person.
Okay, for the professor, what can be done to implement the law? You said that the law requires equality. What can be done to actually implement the law? What recourse do religious and ethnic minorities have under the law to advocate for themselves? And could you tell us more about the government's plan in terms of addressing disparities in healthcare, education, employment, and housing for the ethnic and religious minorities of Israel?
And you only have 5 minutes here. You want? Let's take the questions at a time, one at a time. Go ahead if you will.
In terms of what can be done, the sky's the limit of what can be done. I think that there's already the fact that it's being addressed a lot more in the media, and that there's a local demand. Both even Jews are aware of. Academically, this is widely discussed, and since October 2000, with the terrible events which I never even had time to go into, there have been committees which have identified specific problems of deficiencies in all the areas which you mentioned, and there's been money that has been allocated to increase equality. These things don't happen overnight, and Arab citizens have access to the courts, and they've been using it in addressing and demanding in their what they need. I'm going to give an example. It's an important one. Arab women in Israel, especially in the Bedouin society, have been living through a terrible problem of murder for tainting family pride. And the Arab society has been very disappointed with the fact that the Israeli courts haven't been bringing the murderers. They're calling them, even calling them the word murderer, not dealing with this as something, it's traditional. Their life is worth, they're a citizen. Their life was taken. So this is a gap that the law, the modern law of the modern state has to address a traditional problem and there's a demand for that now, and I think it will be addressed. That's just an example.
Thank you. We have a question for Ned. Evidence of progress that Ned can see.
A lot. That's what I was saying, that I like what I'm seeing. That cop situation, that in my world was an isolated deal. Not every cop is like this. So there's a lot of in marriage. What more you want than that? When you find a sweetheart that she's either an Arab or the Jews, and you want to have your own kids, bear children together, that's a wonderful example, isn't it? Their position.
Can you repeat the question?
Well, I think those who do.
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah, but the question is what the feeling when the intermarriage between Jews and Arabs, right? I think those guys did it the right way. They understood the culture first. I think that's exactly what happened. They got together. A lot of them, you don't see a 60-year-old Jewish person marry a 6-year-old woman. That's not going to happen. You will see the new generation doing this. And those, they've been in college, they went to the universities, they probably worked together at a kibbutz somewhere. And it's more pliable age than, the 60 years old. So they learned each other, they understood each other a little better, and because of that, they were willing to get married.
Question for Tam? Victor? You want to answer that? Is that your area?
I'm sorry, I have not enough expertise in that to answer that question.
There's a good answer. Another question for Tim.
Could I just seek some clarification? Thank you for going through short discussion. Everything you said, I understand, is applying to Israeli Arab citizens. What extent is the principle of equality process before the law apply to non-Israeli Arabs who are living in Israel and Palestine?
Who is that addressed to?
I guess the professor.
Then we can share it.
This discussion is limited to Israel. Non-Israeli Arabs in Israel would be Palestinians who are there legally, not legally, it's not clear to me. Many Arab Israelis identify themselves as Palestinians, and yet they're Arab Israelis by law, and whatever I said applies to them. And if there are Palestinians in Israel, then who are not Arab citizens, who are not Israeli citizens, then they have access to the Supreme Court. Arabs of the Palestinian Authority, while it was under the full Israeli army law, the Arab population had access to the Supreme Court, but I would rather not go there. I think we have enough time to discuss Arab Israelis, which is our topic today, and not go to the Palestinians right now, okay? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to ask you about, and both of you, maybe Ned, I don't know if you were ever a student in it. No, it's for both of you though. Ned, if you were ever a student in Israel, to put yourself in this situation, because it's a real one. And I'd like to know how it has been addressed or can be addressed within the framework of Israeli law. I think he's the chief municipal rabbi in Tzfat, and there are a lot of college students all over, Arab Israeli college students. And he issued an edict saying, don't rent to them, don't rent Arabs. Now, I'd like to know what sort of law in Israel this contravenes. Is discrimination of this sort, encouraging it and sanctioning it and saying you're even obligated to do it by Jewish law? What recourse is there? Is it the religious authorities who have to be, I would say, pressured to push him out? And if it's not religious authorities, is there recourse in civil law to address issues of blatant discrimination like this?
Thank you. Who wants to touch it?
I want to touch this one. Look, I think the problem is him. I'm not an attorney, but I took some civics in high school. In Israeli law, it's very democratic, it's very clear, very fair. But that's the problem. You have a guy who goes and gets an education, and when he graduates, there's no jobs. So what do? Look, this is a cultural thing. Again, it's a cultural thing. If I'm an Arab who went to medical school, graduated, and can't get a job, decent job somewhere else, my culture doesn't allow me to sit with my mom and dad at home. I gotta go get a living. I have to get married and I have to get a living. So what I do, I go and start selling vegetables like the guy did in Tunisia. That's what the guy is missing. He's creating more damage with that statement he made than what he thinks about. You see what I'm saying? The law clearly allows me to do whatever I want to do. Jews and Arabs, it doesn't really matter. But the outcome of what this guy is advocating, it's very negative on the society. I didn't answer it, did I?
Not precisely. He's well, we certainly agree the impact is negative on the attitude of Arabs who are Arab students, young people, and you're saying, and I agree, a younger generation can heal things. But here you have a younger generation of Arabs being told, and they read about it in the paper, here's the municipal rabbi of a big city in the north telling Jews, don't rent to them. And I was asking about the recourse that people have to when they are subjected to this kind of clear discrimination.
The answer to your question, I think, requires a lawyer, or a politician, or a member of the Knesset, not a businessman in the United States, or a professor, unless the professor has an answer.
You know, in religion, it's hard to. I'm not a rabbi. And we choose our religious leaders. Sad to say that this religious leader has followed. It's not a big city. Tzfat is a very small city, but it's a very, 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 very poor city of Hasidic Jews. And the following for these radical, unfortunate statements is growing. And I don't quite know if the law can call this incitement or discrimination. And lately there's been an effort to put another rabbi to bring it to trial, Rabbi Lior from Hebron, who's also said some discriminatory things. I think the law can do a lot more. Many think that the law should do a lot more against rabbis who speak that way. For every rabbi who speaks that way, we have rabbis like Rabbi Lior who bring a lot more enlightenment from Orthodox point of view. You don't have to, even within that, that's what I'm trying to emphasize, that even the Orthodox point of view has no problem with giving full civic equality to Arab citizens and full social and cultural respect and understanding. And the law should do more. I can't answer what the law could do because, as David said, that's not my expertise.
Thank you. Sam?
In keeping with both sides, it's important to both sides get along. But this stands a situation that was just mentioned under Galilee, where there's an Arab city, they won't allow Jewish people to live there. So it works both ways. And as he said, we have to learn in Israel for both sides to get along.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you suggest some domestic platforms or media that we can use to educate people in the States about the situation on a positive and this is a very positive platform?
Educate in the States.
People here, because we always seem like, I think our news is jaded.
No, I don't know if I quite understand what the suggestion is. I'd like to tell you about the college where I teach in Israel. It's in Tel Chai. The head of my program, the conflict management interdisciplinary program, his name is Dr. Mustafa Abbasi. He's an Arab from the Galilee. And for every unfortunate incident, there are maybe more inspirational examples. And Tel Chai has a website and has many, and there's Friends of the Earth Middle East. There are many initiatives. Maybe we could list them and send them out as a listing, and there are many initiatives to support.
In line with getting information that helps reduce the impact of the trauma and the deception division. All right, thank you. In back.
Just very briefly, the answer to the last two questions, where to get information about work within Israel in support of civil rights for minorities, and the question of what recourse do minority people have, is go to the website of the New Israel Fund, NIF.org.
The New Israel Fund.
NewIsraelFund.org, which has a family of a couple of hundred NGOs in Israel, including the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, which is the organization that regularly takes these kinds of claims to the Supreme Court, often with some success. And if you look at the NIF website, you get a sense of what the civil society sector does in support of minority rights.
Thank you. Thank you. Over here in the corner.
Thank you both for the presentation. Really appreciate it. Something that I was wondering, the very first time I went to Israel, I remember a Palestinian telling me something that I thought was very interesting. He said, you know, we don't really, you're my brother, we don't have any problem. But there's a cultural difference between the Ashkenazi and the Sephardic Jews. And we really feel that the Sephardic Jews are much more, you know, culturally similar to us, and we can get along really well. Now, that was a long time ago. That was back in 1980, 81. But I was wondering if you might just say anything, if you have any thoughts about the difference in terms of the relationships and the cultural differences.
Great question. You know, I was born and raised in Nazareth. My wife, born and raised in Arara. Big cultural difference. Arara is next to Hedera. So we call my town the city, hers is the village. For years, when I drove on that highway and I drove by Arara before I met my wife, I used to laugh about it. Cultural differences. You know, folks who come from their villages to Nazareth, we used to think we're third, second class, okay, within the same culture. Same thing with the Jewish community. You have so many different cultural differences within, especially now, you know, you got the Russian and the Ethiopian, what have you. So that is a struggle in Israel. Struggle is learning the culture within the culture. You have hundreds of cultures out there. You know, Kfar Kanna, which is a little village not too far from Nazareth, whole different world. They eat different, they look different, they talk different. I can't relate to them. I'm an Arab, so are they.
St. Paul, Minneapolis.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to call time. At least we got started. It was rolling. We're doing a good job. The climate is good. The relationships are good. People are listening. We did exactly what we planned to do. Thank you.